welcome everybody. Today we're going to be talking about balance transfers and deferred interest. These are two really common promotional things that credit card companies will try to get you to do. So I want you to know more about them so you know what some of the benefits and what some of the pitfalls of these kind of things are. Let's get started. So a balance transfer is when you take money that you owe on one credit card and you literally transfer that debt to a second credit card. That transfer typically comes with a 3 to 5% fee to make that transfer happen. You can typically transfer all or part of the money you owe on one card to the money to another card, as long as there's room under your credit limit for that transfer to happen. And as I said, there's typically a 3 to 5% fee for the transfer. So why would you transfer debt from one card to another? So the reasons are the new card might have a lower APR. So over the long run, you might be paying less in interest. But the primary reason is the next one, which is the card you're transferring to will offer you a promotional APR. And they'll say, hey, if you transfer money from another card to our card, we'll give you 0% for 6 months of APR or for a year. And that can save you money because you're paying 0% interest instead of 18 or 22% interest. All right, let's run some numbers to see how much this could make sense for us. So Matt is considering a balance transfer of $1,800 from a credit card with an APR of 18% to a credit card with a promotional interest rate of 0% for 6 months. So that's kind of cool. You're getting 0%. It's only lasting for 6 months. Before that 6 months, you're not paying any interest on the transfer. So essentially you're saving 18% of interest every month for those 6 months, which is kind of cool. After that 6 months, the APR in balance transfers is 23%. Okay, so this credit card actually has a higher interest rate for the balance transfer than his old card had for purchases. So over the long run, it might be more expensive. And the balance transfer fee is 5%. This is often the case of this increase in interest rate because remember, balance transfers tend to have a higher interest rate than purchases. And Matt's taking his money that he had on this credit card that was listed as purchases, and when he transferred it to a new card, it's now considered a balance transfer, which gets usually charged a higher interest rate. Okay, so let's see if this makes sense. The first thing we can do is figure out how much money is Matt going to pay for the transfer fee. So we know we're going to have 5%. That's a fairly small percent. So the answer we expected to be fairly small compared to $1,800. But because this is a pretty good size number, pretty small compared to it might still be a decent size. All right, let's do the work. So I know before I can use a percent, I need to convert it back to its real form, which is a decimal. So I'm going to take this, oops, sorry about that. Let me turn the pin on real quick. So I'm going to take this 5% and move the decimal place 2 places to the right, add a 0, and the decimal place goes right here. So 0.05 is the real number of 5%. So over here I'm going to calculate. And if you can't remember which way to do this, whether you're going to add, subtract, multiply, or divide, just try all of them. There's only 5 ways, and see which one gives you a reasonable number. So I'm going to do multiply by 0.05, and that's going to give me, what is that? That's going to give me $90 of a fee. So in order to transfer this money, the new credit card is going to charge you a $90 fee, which means the total transfer is going to not just be $1,800, it's going to be $1,890. $1,890 is going to be what's actually transferred to the card, because they don't actually make you pay the $90 up front. They just add it to your credit card. That way, after the 6 months is up, they'll start charging you interest on that fee as well. Okay. So Matt says, you know what? I'm going to buckle down and I'm going to send in $315 a month to try and pay this thing off. So let's figure out how much Matt would actually pay off in 6 months, paying $315 a month. So we're going to take the $315 he pays each month. We're going to multiply it by 6 months, and we're going to get $1,890 he'll pay in that 6 months. Now, we were able to ignore any interest during that 6 months because he gets 0% for 6 months. So if he's able to do this $315 a month, he can pay the debt off without paying any additional interest. So here, his true cost of the debt is $1,890. Now you may have thought the true cost should be $1,800 because he's not being charged any interest, but remember, he is being charged that fee. This transfer fee is like paying interest up front. So really he just paid $90 of interest on day one and then no interest for the rest of the 6 months. See how they kind of get you on that? Okay. So now we need to figure out how much the debt would cost Matt. What if he didn't transfer it and he just paid the 18% for 6 months, making monthly payments of $315? What would that do to his debt? So to do this, because it has interest, we need to build one of those tables that we've been working with and fill out all 6 rows, calculating the interest every month and subtracting stuff, all that work. The nice thing is I've done that for us. So I've got this spreadsheet here that has that table we've been trying to do. And I'm just going to change some numbers real quick. So I think the balance that we're talking about here was $1,800. We don't include the $90 because this is this is what would happen without a transfer. The APR here is I think 18%, and his payment was $315. If he does that without the transfer, he's going to end up paying $1,895.98, so about $1,896. So let's come back over here and add that number in. So here he's going to pay $1,896 if he just pays it off on his card normally without the transfer. So how much does the transfer save him? $1,896 minus the $1,890 from the transfer one. The transfer has saved him a whopping $6 in interest. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. That's a savings. If this 5% is lower and it's like on the 3% range, this is more like a savings of $40. If the 6 months APR is extended out to 12-month APR, the savings might be $80 or $90. So you'll be saving some money, but you're not saving huge amounts of money. And the risk you take is because you've transferred the money, you've changed your money from purchases, which is usually a lower APR, into balance transfer interest, which is usually higher. So if you don't pay it off in that 6 months, you're likely to end up paying more money for the transfer than you would if you just left it and paid it down. So balance transfers can be good for you. They're better when the 0% is for a longer period of time, and when the fee is a smaller number like 3%. But they can be costly to you if you don't get after it and pay off the debt during that time. A lot of people do a balance transfer and their mentality is, oh, that's 0%, I don't have to worry about it now. But you still want to get after paying off that debt. That's the only way it's going to make sense. It could actually cost you money in the long run otherwise. All right, enough on balance transfers. They can be good, they can be bad, but the good and bad is small by small amounts. It's not going to be enormously costly. It's not going to be a huge problem. All right, why do credit card companies offer balance transfers? So you might think the goal of a credit card company is to get you to pay back the money that you borrowed from them when you bought stuff. That is not their goal. Their goal is to have you keep buying stuff and maintaining a balance on your card all the time. Because remember, they only charge you interest on the recurring balance, the money you've left on there for multiple months. And they make their money off interest. So they're actually trying to get you to transfer as much money to their card, even if they have to give you a 6 to 12 month deal on the interest. They know most people don't pay off that balance during that time. And after that time, they start charging you interest and they're starting to make their money now. And that's also why those minimum payments are so small. The minimum payments that they require from you, they want you to just keep paying interest over and over again all month, slowly paying off your debt and paying them tons of interest. So that's why a credit card company would want you to transfer money onto their card. It's so they can, in the long run, charge you more interest. All right, so let's shift gears. We're going to talk about now a deferred interest credit card. So unlike balance transfers that can have a small positive or relatively small negative effect on you financially, deferred interest cards can be really problematic or really beneficial. They can save you thousands or cost you thousands. We'll talk more about that. So store credit cards routinely offer these deals, and they look like this thing in the lower right here. Get 18 months financing. No interest if paid in full within 18 months. So notice there's a big if statement there. So it's not 0% interest, it's no interest if you do something. So to get this deal, this no interest, that not paying the interest, you need to pay, typically you have to pay the full balance before the promotional period ends. In this case, 18 months. So you got to pay off the entire debt in that 18 months. And every month you have to pay at least the minimum payment each month. If you miss even one payment, you're going to have all the interest added in. This is a great example of it. Even if you leave a small balance on the end of the 18 month, they drop all of the interest on you at the end. So what they'll do is they keep track of the interest the entire time, how much you would be paying each month, and they hold that off to the side. If you don't pay the balance in full by the end of the 18 months, or you miss a single payment, they add that enormous amount of interest that's been building up onto your account. These are really good for like Home Depots and stores, because people hear no interest and they ignore the fact that this little plus sign here at the bottom here, this means below there's some like fine print that tells you that it's probably something like 26 or 29% interest that's accruing, that's building up on the debt, but won't be added if you can do those two things. Okay. And making a mistake like missing a payment or not getting it fully paid off can cost you thousands of dollars in debt. All right, promotional interest rates. So I want to differentiate real quick between 0% interest for 6 months, which is, if they say 0% interest, it means that they're not charging you interest. They're not calculating it. It's not part of the game. You'll never pay that interest. Whereas deferred interest is the kind where they say, if you paid off in the promotional time, they're keeping track of all the interest that's building up on the account, and they're waiting to drop it into your account and charge you that amount if you make any mistakes. So know that those two things are totally different. 0% means you'll never pay interest during that time. Deferred interest means you won't pay interest if you pay the thing off in the promotional period and you never miss a payment, or you never send in anything less than minimum payment. Okay. These deals can be really beneficial, but they're also really dangerous. So you can save thousands of dollars in interest, or you can have that interest dropped on you at the very end and have to pay an extra thousands of dollars. So they can be on both sides of this thing. So why would a store offer deferred interest on a credit card? So stores make money off credit cards in two ways. One is that they encourage overspending. So when you've got this card and you have this like, oh, I have a $3,000 or $5,000, $12,000 credit limit, you're like, oh, I should spend the whole $12,000. So you end up buying more stuff with them. So stores love that. And then they can earn interest on anyone who doesn't pay off the debt in the time or misses a payment. So they know that a lot of people are actually not going to be able to pay that debt off because they haven't planned for it properly. So at the end, they're going to be able to get money from the interest as well. And then making just the minimum, making just the minimum payment is not going to get it paid off in time. You need to always make more than the minimum payment. Well, on the next slide, we'll see how to calculate that. All right, so Quinn is considering purchasing $12,480 in building materials to build a deck. He's considering a 24-month deferred interest credit card from Lowe's. So basically what they'll do is they'll put this full amount on the card, and as long as he pays it all off in the 24 months, he won't be paying any extra interest on it. And the credit card has an APR of 16%. That's really low for this credit card. I think I may have meant 26%. Deferred interest credit cards typically have a very high interest rate behind them. All right, let's see if we can do this. Actually, let's change this 16 to 26%, because that would be a ridiculous number for the deferred interest credit card. All right, so if Quinn wants to pay back his loan, how much does he have to pay each month to get it paid off in 24 months? So to do that, we can just play around with the numbers. So we've got the 24-month number and the $12,480. If you're not sure how to do the math on this, just multiply and divide them and add them and subtract them and play around till you get a number that's reasonable. I'm expecting a fairly large number, but I've got 24 months to pay it in, so it's not going to be huge, but it's going to be kind of big. So I'm going to try 12,480 divided by 24. And that's going to give me, let's see if that's right, 12,480 divided by 24, $520. So this is $520 per month. If he pays $520 per month, he's going to pay this thing off in 24 months and not have to pay this 26% interest, which would be really cool to be able to do. All right, so if he pays that $520 a month, he's totally good, no interest is charged. I built another spreadsheet for us though, so we can see what happens if he doesn't. So if he doesn't pay off this debt, if he either misses a payment or he doesn't pay at least the minimum payment, or he doesn't pay it all off, so 1 month maybe he only pays $400, at the end he's going to have $120 left, that's going to trigger all the interest to be paid. So here we're keeping track of another table here of all the interest charged. And what we end up with is $3,380 of interest accruing on the loan over that time. So then if he doesn't pay it all off, they're going to add this $3,000 to his account. And that next month, they're going to be charging you interest on that interest as you try and pay down the extra $3,000. So his $12,480 of purchase is going to go up to almost $16,000 of a true cost if he doesn't make these payments on time. So I can't stress enough, if you do one of the deferred interest things, you must prioritize this loan, this debt, over most other things in your life. You've got to make these payments on time, and you've got to figure it out. The minimum payment on this, the minimum payment on this account is probably like $300 a month. So the $300 a month will not get you to fully paid off. Remember, they're trying to get you to pay the interest, not to pay no interest. So they're going to design everything in a way that kind of keeps you from achieving that goal of paying it off. That's true of the minimum payment. It's your job to do that math to figure out how much you should be paying each month. I wouldn't pay the $520. I would pay the $550. And if I couldn't afford $550 a month in payments, I would not do this. Also, in 22 years, 24 months, you might find that, hey, you might lose a job, you might get into a car accident. There's all kinds of things that happen in your life, and that's going to cost you an additional $3,000 in interest if anything goes wrong and you can't make these payments. All right, my friends, that's it for us today. Good job with everything. Good luck with the practice. Let me know if you need any help.